What happens when a racist gang targets the wrong woman? They think she's an easy victim, until her loyal pit bull, Max, shows them just how wrong they are. A robbery attempt turns into a fight for survival as Max defends his owner with unwavering loyalty, proving that no one, no matter how big or dangerous, can underestimate the power of a woman and her dog. Tasha adjusted the strap of her purse as she walked down the quiet, suburban street, the soft echo of her footsteps the only sound breaking the silence of the night. It was well past midnight, and the world around her was still, save for the occasional rustling of leaves in the cool evening breeze. Another long shift had come to an end, and though she was exhausted, Tasha felt a sense of peace. The hum of streetlights was familiar, the rhythm of her walk comforting. She loved the calm of her neighborhood, where the nights were serene, and the worries of the day seemed to fade. Her eyes flicked down to Max, the pit bull trotting beside her. Max was more than just a dog to Tasha, he was family. He had been her constant companion through years of struggle, supporting her when times were tough and celebrating with her during her victories. His sleek black coat shimmered under the streetlights, his muscular frame a testament to the strength and loyalty he possessed. Max was a dog who knew how to protect, how to sense danger, and how to be there when Tasha needed him most. Over the years, they had built a bond that could never be broken, a silent understanding between them that was stronger than words. Though Tasha felt safe in her neighborhood, there was always a heightened sense of awareness in her, a trait developed from years of being independent and looking out for herself. Max, too, was always alert. He walked at her side, his movements calm but his ears perked, eyes scanning the dark corners of the street. Tasha smiled softly. It was as if he knew how to read the world around them, sensing the moods of others, always attuned to the shift in the air. She trusted him completely. Tonight, everything felt normal, but little did Tasha know, this calm would soon be shattered by forces beyond her control. Across town, a small gang of men huddled in the shadows of a dimly lit alleyway. The group, known for their racist tendencies, had been causing trouble in the neighborhood for months. They weren't particularly clever, just a few petty criminals who preyed on vulnerable targets, mostly people they deemed easy pickings. Late-night muggings and thefts had been their modus operandi, and tonight, they had a plan. One of the men, a burly figure with a sneer that could cut through steel, noticed a woman walking down the street. His eyes narrowed as he took in the sight of her, alone, a woman of color, and seemingly unaware of the danger around her. To the gang, she was the perfect target. They'd grown comfortable with their scheme, harassing women who appeared defenseless, believing that fear and intimidation would make them submit. They hadn't expected anyone to fight back, not a woman like her, walking alone at night, unaccompanied. "She's all alone," one of the men muttered, eyeing Tasha from across the street. "She's an easy one." The others nodded in agreement. The gang assumed that a woman walking by herself in the dark was someone they could overpower easily. Tasha's confident stride only made them more certain. They thought she'd be just another victim, vulnerable and helpless. What they didn't see, however, was the powerful force standing beside her. Max, her dog, sensed the shift in the air. His muscles tensed, his ears pricked as he walked alongside Tasha, perfectly in sync with her every movement. Max had been trained to protect. But it wasn't just training that made him alert, it was his deep bond with Tasha. He knew her rhythms, her moods, and the subtle cues that warned him when something wasn't right. As the gang drew closer, their voices louder and more threatening, Max's gaze hardened. His protective instincts kicked in, and he stayed just a step behind Tasha, ready to act at a moment's notice. Tasha, feeling the change in Max's behavior, glanced down at him. She didn't need to ask. She could see the warning in his eyes. Something was wrong. But like always, she trusted Max completely, her quiet strength reassuring him that no matter what happened next, they would face it together. The gang closed in on Tasha as she walked further down the street, their footsteps quickening, the sound of them echoing in the otherwise quiet night. It was too late to turn back now. As they surrounded her, the lead man sneered, his eyes flicking to her purse and phone. "Hey lady," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "Give us your stuff now. You don't want any trouble." The gang members behind him chuckled. their eyes scanning her with cold, calculating intent. They were confident, too confident, believing their intimidation would work. Tasha didn't flinch. Instead, she stopped walking, lifting her chin slightly, meeting the eyes of the gang with unwavering defiance. She had seen harder times than this, faced down uglier situations, and this wasn't going to break her. They thought she was an easy target, but they didn't know her. "Get lost," she said, her voice steady but firm. "I'm not giving you anything. You want to fight, take your best shot, but I'm not scared of you." The leader's grin faltered. He wasn't used to women standing up to him like this. His eyes narrowed in disgust, and he took a step closer. "You think you're tough, huh? You think you're better than us?" He spat on the ground, then raised his voice, his words laced with racist venom. "What, you think just 'cause you're walking around like you own this place, you can ignore us? You ain't anything but a victim waiting to happen." But Tasha didn't flinch. Her body was still, but every muscle was tense. She was ready for whatever came next. She had learned to be strong, no matter the odds, and the thought of letting them win made her stomach turn. As the gang's leader reached out to grab her purse, a low, menacing growl cut through the air. Tasha's heart skipped a beat as she looked down. Max was no longer walking calmly at her side. He had positioned himself between her and the gang, his eyes locked on the men with an intensity that froze them in their tracks. The growl grew louder, more threatening, as Max's body coiled in preparation. "Stay away from her," Tasha said, her voice low and dangerous, as she placed a hand gently on Max's back. She could feel the tension in his muscles, the protective instincts that were as much a part of him as his loyalty. The gang hesitated, their confident smirks faltering as Max let out a warning bark. His teeth visible now in a fierce snarl. This was no ordinary dog. They'd made a grave mistake. They thought they could rob this woman, but they hadn't accounted for the unshakable bond between Tasha and her dog, a bond that made Max an unstoppable force. The gang leader let out a harsh laugh, as if the situation were nothing more than a joke. He stared at Max, a mere pit bull in his eyes, a dog he figured was just a pet, with no real bite. "What's he gonna do, huh? Bite me?" He sneered, stepping closer to Tasha. "You really think that dog can stop us?" The other men snickered, underestimating Max's loyalty and the strength he was capable of. They thought it was all bluster. A dog wasn't a serious threat to them. After all, they were 5 strong men, and a dog was just a dog. They hadn't reckoned on Max's protective instincts or the depth of his bond with Tasha. As the gang moved in, reaching for Tasha's bag, Max's eyes narrowed. His body tensed, every muscle in him ready to spring into action. In one lightning-quick motion, Max leapt forward, a growl erupting from deep in his chest. Before the nearest man could react, Max's powerful jaws locked around his arm, dragging him to the ground with a force that sent shockwaves through the air. The man screamed, flailing, but Max held firm, not letting go. Chaos erupted in an instant. The gang members froze, their bravado shattered by the raw power of Max's attack. They hadn't expected a dog to move like this, so fast, so fierce, so determined. Max wasn't just protecting Tasha, he was fighting for her survival. His growl grew louder as he pulled the man closer, a clear warning to anyone who dared approach. The gang's earlier confidence turned into panic. The leader yelled for his men to get away from the dog, but they were too frightened to act. One man, his face pale with fear, tried to pry Max off his comrade, but Max snapped at him, making him recoil in terror. "Get this damn dog off me," one of the men screamed. But Max wasn't listening. He was locked onto his target. His loyalty was unshakable, his resolve stronger than ever. The gang realized too late that they had underestimated the force they were up against. Max wasn't just a dog, he was a protector. And in that moment, the gang understood that they had made a huge mistake. They weren't up against a defenseless woman and her pet. They were up against the unwavering loyalty of a dog willing to fight to the death for the one he loved. The gang's fear spread like wildfire. The tables had turned, and now they were the ones trying to escape. The gang's retreat was swift, panic written across their faces as they scrambled to escape the scene. No longer interested in robbing Tasha, they had learned a harsh lesson. They had underestimated not just the woman they had targeted, but the fierce loyalty of her dog. Max stood tall, his chest heaving, his gaze never wavering from the fleeing men. With a final growl, he made sure they got the message. Stay away. The gang members didn't need any further warning. They ran off into the night, leaving the street behind them in their hasty retreat. Tasha stood frozen for a moment, her heart racing. She couldn't believe what had just happened, how quickly the situation had escalated, and how Max had turned it all around. Her body trembled, the adrenaline wearing off, but she didn't take her eyes off Max. She knelt down beside him, her voice soft but full of emotion as she whispered his name. Max, you saved me, she said, her voice shaking. The tears she had held back now spilled freely as she hugged him tightly, burying her face in his fur. Max responded with a gentle lick to her cheek, as if telling her that it was nothing, that protecting her was his job, his duty, his love. In that moment, Tasha knew she would never be able to express enough gratitude for the dog who had stood by her through everything. The next day, word spread quickly through the neighborhood. People talked in hushed tones about the robbery attempt and how Tasha's dog had stopped a gang in their tracks. The story of Max's bravery soon became the talk of the town, with neighbors praising both Tasha's courage and the dog's unwavering loyalty. Some even made it a point to stop by her house, offering their support and admiration. Tasha had always known Max was special, but now the world was seeing it too. Her story became a symbol of strength, of standing up against adversity, and of how love and loyalty could defy even the darkest of intentions. Max was no longer just her protector. He was a hero, and his actions would be remembered for a long time. As for the gang, their reputation was tarnished beyond repair. Not only were they known for their racist actions, but now they were the ones who had underestimated a woman and her dog. They had tried to pick on the wrong person, and in doing so, they had become a cautionary tale. People would remember them not as the tough, feared group they thought they were, but as the men who couldn't handle the unstoppable force of a woman's strength and a dog's loyalty.